So somehow that part of my creativity gradually was the thing that I was clutching to more and more. And music itself was starting to seem more and more meaningless. And I was having a lot of strange experiences where, like, I couldn't find any CDs or records on the shelves that I wanted to hear. Everyone had some sort of bad connotation to me. And those experiences were really scary. And so where music had felt like it was my best friend, it was starting to feel like music itself was turning on me or something. It felt like the voices in my head that had been guiding me towards what had been by far the most creative period of my life were starting to seem like angry at me or opposed to me in some way. We weren't working as a team anymore. And I felt like as the tour went on, I couldn't explain any of this stuff to anybody. I don't think I even knew the word synesthesia. I just knew it felt like my creativity was disappearing.
Yeah.
And the painting and the drawing and the drugs as well were, with my sense, if those feelings that I was having in me were what creativity was, those seemed like the way to hold on to it was to take drugs as much as I wanted and to paint and draw as much as possible. And that was really, you learn different ways of doing this kind of thing, of staying connected to creativity in your life. But at that time, I was 22 years old. Mm-hmm. It seemed to me that you just followed whatever those feelings that you have inside you are. You stay connected to whatever gives you that feeling. Like the Janis Joplin lyric about, you've got it if it makes you feel good. That's I thought that was the path to follow. So it didn't occur to me to do anything like stop smoking pot or stop taking drugs or meditate. Not these things just were not anything that me or anybody that I was close to was considering at the time.
Yeah.
Did you even meditate back then?
Yeah, I learned when I was 14.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah.
But I remember coming to see you when it was bad.
Yeah.
At your old house, and it was you didn't have many teeth then, if any, and the walls had blood all over them. There was a lot of vomit everywhere, and I think you may have still had one guitar, but maybe not even that.
Yeah.
And I remember you being resolute in what you were doing. There was a sense of, it wasn't like you were trapped and you wanted to get out. It was just the opposite. It's like, no, I am following my path and I'm following it to its end, wherever it takes me. And you definitely owned it. You owned your choices and were going. It was, again, like, I respect you. I wouldn't tell you to do anything different. It's like, if you say this is what I want to do, it's like, I understand. I wouldn't want anyone telling me to do something different than what I want to do, whatever it is, right or wrong or good or bad or wherever it goes. It's like, I support you in your journey. And if this is the journey that feels like the one that you want to be on, it's sad for me to see because it felt like you were going away.
Yeah.
I think you weighed very little at that time too and were really weak. But you were still you, and you were still smiley, and like you were. It wouldn't be so different than the conversation we're having now,
Right.
Other than it just seemed more harrowing from an outsider coming in that this was a scary situation. It's just so we have no context for this situation at any point in my life. Like, I don't know what to do other than I love you, I support you, whatever it is. I don't know what that is. It's just scary.
Yeah, no, that was a funny thing about me during that period in comparison to the other people that I was friends with who went down a similar path with drugs, was that they all felt guilty about it always.
Yeah.
They all denied. It took them a long time to even admit that they were an addict, and took them a long time to, and they would always be talking about how they were going to quit. They were always talking about how this is the last time. And I never did any of that. Like while I was doing it, I was really happy doing it. I was so happy to still be in touch with that spark of creativity inside myself. And I really felt that it was drifting away while I was playing with the band. And as long as I had to do publicity and, and touring and all these things, performing in front of people, it just felt like it seemed to me there was no direction for it to go, but to disappear completely. And I felt that in what I was doing, I was keeping it alive. And really the hard time for me was when I attempted to stop. Like there was about a year there where I just didn't feel like myself anymore. And the feelings went completely away. Like once I stopped taking drugs, there was nothing, my head was blank. There was no seeing music as colors or music as shapes or anything like that anymore. It was just...
Tell me the story of deciding to stop. You told me a story when I first saw you after that, and I want to see if it is still what it was then or close to what it was then.
Yeah.
The last time I saw you at your house, when things were scary for me to see, you were very positive on this journey that you were on.
Right.
And it was an unflinching move wherever it was going to go.
Yeah.
And then the next time I saw you was at LACMA at a Buñuel movie festival, and I didn't recognize you because you looked so radically different, but you were great and healthy, and I couldn't believe it. I was so happy. I was so happy to see you. I was so happy to see you alive. I was so happy to see you, and you were your happy self. So tell me about what happened in between for that to happen.
Right. Okay. Getting specific, I'm pretty sure that time when I saw you at the Buñuel thing was during that first year that I had gotten over the addiction of heroin. That I've never since then had to be medicated to get off heroin. Mm-hmm. But it was about a year where most of the time I was clean, but I also had certain points during it where I had a speed binge or a crack binge or something. Like I had this idea that I could do things. I really always wanted to be able to do things occasionally, and so that was my first attempt to do that. And it was a hard period because that thing when you didn't recognize me, like a lot of people had that with me at the time. Like my body had forgotten how to process food, and I didn't know anything really. I was trying to eat what I thought was health food, but it wasn't really super helping. And I felt very uncomfortable in my body. And so that first year was really a struggle because not only was I trying to exist in the world knowing I don't have those things that I was describing as feelings and vibes connected with music anymore. At least it wasn't in the pronounced way than it was when I had synesthesia, but boy, did Joy Division mean everything to me back then. Like Nirvana, Bob Marley, Joy Division, those three things in particular, like I was so crazy about those particular things. Like they meant so much to me. And I didn't have that specific colorful reaction to them that I was describing from the blood sugar time. But I don't think music had ever meant so much to me because life seemed so bleak otherwise. People didn't really enjoy being around me. People felt sorry for me a lot. The same sense of humor that used to be funny when I was like the young, handsome, cool guy. Now, like the same jokes didn't work anymore. Like the same sense of humor wasn't working. I'm convinced that when I was 20, 21, I could have been an actor. At that time, 27, I had the distinct feeling I could never be an actor again. After this experience of realizing like how much of myself was on the surface, that was the reason that my personality was what it was very traumatic. And so that year was tough. And it ended with a few months of me making sure I avoided heroin addiction, but just doing whatever I wanted and going really off the deep end and having these crazy experiences where there were hallucinations, but they were very real for me, where like people were in my house that weren't there and I spent hours talking to them and stuff. Marcel Duchamp, Flea and Clara, like Perry Farrell, all kinds of people were there. And I thought they were there. I would call them afterwards talking about what we had done yesterday. Why did you leave? Because they would just disappear after a matter of hours of hanging out with each other. And then they would just disappear. And I would call them wondering, what happened? Where did you go? And it wasn't until I'd had that experience a bunch of times that I realized, wow, these things, I'm hanging out with people really late at night. And that was the way to know for me, like if somebody's here and it's